That's it, June. Keep to their left. Just a little closer now. The ships were in formation to keep the SS Acid Rat from getting away. Vic didn't like the thought of that sheriff sitting in his captain's seat. It wasn't right that someone else was flying it. He'd have to teach that sheriff a lesson, and being inside one of these big blobs would make all the difference. Ever since the small police cruiser had flown into the Acid Rat, it was likely they had given up. The only thing missing was the white flag. That was Vic's first clue that this was a trap. Sheriff Justice had another thing coming if he thought the crew would just give up. Plu, how durable are these bodies? I don't understand what you mean, Victor Gallegos. They work hard. They accomplish the tasks they are assigned. What else would they need to do? He needed to word this without getting anyone else worked up. He'd already spoken directly to Lou and Dexter. That was the great thing about these big blob things. He could talk directly to who he wanted. He wasn't sure if the others had picked up on that or not, but he'd have to be sure they didn't know until his plan was put into action. Will these things survive a short fall? He asked. There was a brief pause. If he asked correctly, only Plu knew what he was asking about. He didn't want June and Joey to know what was going on, or they'd never agree. That's the last thing they agreed to was Vic, Lou, and Dexter free-falling down to the Acid Rat and forcing it open. Unless he missed the feeling in his brain, Plu was scanning his brain, perhaps trying to figure out what his plan could be. Victor Gallegos, I don't think you understand what you're asking. If you fall from this height, the guard you're in will return to me, as do all the replicants regardless of condition. You will not. From what I understand of your physiology, you will expire, and there will be nothing I can do for you after that. My bigger concern is that if you fall from this point, you are closer to the center star than you are to the ground, and you will, along with my replicant, be destroyed. I cannot allow that. Plu, I need you to understand that I know the risk. I know I've got a little piece of you here, and I'm not about to kill it. I'm certainly not going to kill myself. I just need to take a small, calculated risk to get the ship back. I'd like to see your calculations. Vic, we're getting closer. What do we do? These ships don't have those beam things like the one they towed us in with. 1 second, June. Vic knew he needed Plu's buy-in to accomplish this. If he didn't go along with the plan, then he could just freeze the blobs, and then they wouldn't be able to do anything. Plu, I know this will work. Calculations aren't important here. It's all feel. You need to trust me on this one. If I'm going to get my ship back and help you save your planet, well, then I need to do this. If Plu didn't agree, this would be a short trip for nothing. Sure, Vic had gotten the hang of moving around in this blob body, but he had a feeling he could do a lot more with it than any of them on this planet had ever dared try. They were, after all, just big shapeless masses. He didn't even think they felt pain, though he could sense things like the floors they passed over it or controls they touched. He didn't see any reason why they'd have to maintain their current shape except that it was what they'd always done. The leader of this planet, the ruler, the god, stood in stony silence. Vic knew it was thinking everything through. Vic didn't even want to let Plu know what the plan was. It was risky, and he honestly wasn't sure if he could pull it off. It didn't matter at this point. All of their lives were at risk. He just needed to get on his ship as quickly as possible and convince them to open the holes at the poles so he and the rest of them could make their escape. I now understand what you are proposing. Not in full detail, but after scanning your mind for what you are planning, I think it may work. I will accompany you to make sure nothing goes wrong. I will have an assembly on the ground should something go wrong. No, he did not want Plu coming along for the ride. I'd rather you didn't risk yourself. I am never at risk, nor have I ever been at risk. I am everyone, and everywhere. You and your crew have given me your promise to aid my planet in this most desperate time. I am curious about what you are planning to do, and I will be with you to assist in carrying out that plan. Shall we move to the door? There wasn't time for this. He couldn't waste any more time convincing Plu to stay here. If the big blob leader wanted to come along, then so be it. June, Joey, I need the two of you to come up alongside the Acid Rat. Stay about 50 feet over it. Justice has to know he's not going to get away. June spoke up. I was going to say, whatever you got planned, now looks like the best time to do it. The ship is moving in a straight line now. Perfect. Let me know when you're in position. Lou, Dexter, I need the two of you to make your way to the doors. Come on, Plu, let's make this happen. Wait a minute, Joey said. What do you mean, make your way to the doors? These bodies aren't exactly aerodynamic. As soon as you jump, they'll catch the air and deform and you'll just blow away. One step ahead of you, kid. Vic concentrated on making the blob change to something that resembled an old-fashioned bomb with legs. See, kid? This'll work just fine. That's brilliant, Vic! Lou sounded enthusiastic about the jump. What do we do once we get closer to the ship? Plu hit the button to open the door. Just follow my lead. June, Joey, Argmon, take the ships a little higher and more to the front. I want to make sure we have enough room for this jump. We'll only get one shot at this. Victor Gallegos, you understand we have less than an hour before the star goes critical. He didn't know that. He didn't want to know that. All Plu did was put more pressure on them. Getting the ship back should be easy enough. Sheriff Justice wouldn't be expecting a party to hop on board. I got it, Plu. Vic? Yeah, kid. We're in a bit of a hurry. I need to be on the ship as well. I have an idea of how to save the star. Great, kid. You'll have to wait just a little bit. Once we've taken control of the ship back, we'll all get on and figure this out. I think we should all get on the ship together. June, we don't have time for this. Are we in position yet? Yes, Vic. Great. Now she was mad. They were all going to die, and wasn't it just like June to make this all his fault? He'd tried to get them out of there. It wasn't his fault this planet they'd picked had life inside of it. How was he supposed to know? No more time to dwell on this. Let's go! Vic jumped. The air rippled the surface of the blob's body. With a little concentration, he turned the surface rigid, and the body fell like a rock. He extended the blob's arms and made them flatter, more rigid. Wings. Suddenly he was coasting gently down toward the acid rat. His ship. That pesky sheriff and his son wouldn't keep him from getting it back. Lou, Dexter, Plu, and one of the other guards fell into formation. In just a few minutes, they'd have the acid rat back under their control. They descended on the SS Acid Rat like a pack of killer whales after a gray whale. There was a little turbulence, but they all managed to stay on target. All four of them landed on the top of the ship at the same time. The extra weight caused the ship to list to the side. If Muffin had been in control, she would have autocorrected as soon as the ship started to tilt. But someone was flying the ship manually. That was Vic's worst fear. Plu, I need to get a small control panel and open the hangar doors. How do I... The blob, no longer in bomb plane form, pushed Vic forward. He still stayed inside the being, which was what he wanted. He wasn't sure if he'd be able to hang on. Without asking him, the thing had become like a giant suction cup and stuck to the ship's surface. With a little guidance, Vic moved toward the control panel. He passed his hands through the skin of the blob, and instantly his hands froze. The air was thinner up there, but it didn't seem to affect the blobs. Vic thought being closer to the sun it would be much warmer, but looking at the star he could see just how dim it had become. They really didn't have much time. He focused, and the tentacles emerged from the blob and worked the controls. It had been a while since he'd done this manually, and he'd never done it trying to think his way through the process. There was something to be said for muscle memory, and just letting your body do the work and keeping your brain out of the way. Finally, the lights went from red to green, and the hangar doors began to open. In just a couple of minutes, they'd be inside. The new doors allowed a bigger section of the roof to open. This had become unuseful for some of the larger cargo. He never thought he'd needed to let himself in this way. Vic, be careful! You don't know what they're doing in there. Relax, June. We locked down the weapons room, and they didn't appear to have any weapons. Besides, we're in these big blob bodies. What could go wrong? Before the doors had fully opened, Vic dropped down into the cargo hold. The iron butterfly had been driven into the weapons room, leaving a gaping hole. The police cruiser sat where the iron butterfly should have been. Sheriff Justice, Jr., and another officer stood with soups on and weapons drawn. They'd gotten the jump on him. For a moment, and just for a moment, Vic thought about attacking with the blob body he was in, but that would make everyone just that much more upset with him. Better to play this one cool. He would need to talk his way out of this one, something he'd done 100 times before. Why not make it 101? You've been listening to Hollow, V&A Shipping, Book 2, written and read by J.R. Murdoch. For more information about this production and its author, visit jrmurdoch.com. There are a lot of ways you can choose to spend your time. Thank you for choosing to spend it with me.